Cool. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. You're in.
Cool.
And
Okay, I'm
you,
gonna definitely cracking a Guinness for this one.
so we both, I think, started earlier. HealthXL has been going all day for me here. I've been on watched, Glenn with Lisa do the
Right.
interview.
Yeah.
Then I got sucked into the telemedicine portal.
Okay.
Then digital therapeutics, and then
Yeah.
just hopped off. You were doing something, right? Also.
Yeah, I was helping run one of the panels. I was doing the payer panel and the patient engagement, and yeah, it was great to see everyone. I was like a kid, I was sending little notes to everyone on the private chat, like passing notes, between everyone, distracting them.
So I'm going to join you. I like this, by the way, of drinking actually a shot of therapy, right?
Yeah.
I had one shot earlier as we was trying to spin music in the networking session, but
so what'd you think of the HealthXL? The guys did a good job. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah. I actually thought it was so smooth. And Robin from Novartis, Robin Roberts.
Yeah.
We were just kind of discussing that, the whole like rooms. It kind of brings us back to the beam me up, Scotty. It just whoever comes up with those, disciplining human beings on the screen will win.
Yeah, totally. That's what I like. It's like you will be transported. You're trying to get yourself in, so some of you gets transported and some of you doesn't.
So
right.
it's interesting. Obviously, just seeing 100+ people on the different screens, and so many familiar faces, and especially like in the DTX discussions. Plus some of the news of GoodRx, filing their S1.
Right.
And I was just actually, I did email Doug Hirsch, who I actually have not interacted for like literally 9-10 years, but I went to search for my email and I saw an email from like July 26th of 2011. And there's a rhyme or reason to this conversation. And it said, thanks for responding via LinkedIn. I'm in the process of building a consumer-facing price comparison engine for prescription drugs. Think about Omada, 2011. Think about, Big Health / Sleepio, 2010. And so, like, it takes about, I guess, 10 years or so to build I put it in quotes, successful, whatever success means, company.
Yep. 10 years, 100%. And anyone that says otherwise, like there's something else to it if you build it in a shorter period of time. Like you look at the Livongo story, there was, that was faster. I mean, it was definitely faster, but there was an acquisition of an asset that began with, there was a team that had already been working together for a long time. So it is possible to do it quicker, but even with that, every company that I've been
7-8 years, right? Plus the
100%.
acquisition, plus, so it's,
anyone that says otherwise, it's a 7 to 10 years. 7 years to do you have something that's kind of worthwhile and sustainable, in 10 years to get to potential breakout, and you get signals of it in like year 4 or 5. That's my view.
So Marina and I are only like 8 months into it. I have no more hair to lose.
Yeah. Now, I mean, there's different things. I mean, I think it's a really good question though, about like building sustainable businesses or building businesses. Now, it's not that there's not kind of financial engineering of opportunities, right? Like you say, like I can acquire, these customers and these, areas, and you can do that in 36 months, and it also depends. It's like, it's this whole myth of the young person that's an entrepreneur that starts. Most companies aren't that way.
So, I guess speaking of somewhat entrepreneurial, somewhat coming from the big co and building stuff, I'm actually excited to let in Melinda Decker into our discussion, who...
Absolutely.
I'm going to let her in and then have her give a little background.
Melinda's joining us, highly referenced from a mutual friend. Hey, Melinda, can you hear us yet?
I can.
Hey.
Welcome.
How are you?
Good. You're like in an exotic locale.
Yeah, this is my backyard.
Yes. Take it outside. And
I'm in a garage, Melinda.
I have to say, Eugene, you look like you're in a garage, so it's almost as exotic.
It's very exotic.
This
I even got a projector. People think it's a projector right there.
Oh, yeah.
This kind of fits our personalities, you know. Eugene's
So
in the garage.
just to make sure, Melinda, we haven't met, right?
No.
Like
I
face to
don't
face.
believe so. We
I
just
was
know
just-
all of the same people.
I was just
Right.
yesterday. Ed Cox reached out, who I haven't spoken to also in at least a couple of weeks. And like, oh, I heard Melinda is going to be on Shadow Digital Health. And I'm like, are you jealous?
Well, I have to say, Melinda, first of all, starts off with this, like, I reached out to Nancy Phelan and told her, she's like, oh, I love the podcast. And then, so you come absolutely highly recommended. She said, the one person you have to have on the podcast was Melinda. So you came in. So right then, anyone that knows Nancy Phelan, who has a big career in pharma and worked at, is working at Novartis now, right? Yep. And her achievement really was surviving me. I used to run her budgets for her back in Cherry and Plow back in the days, which is a scary thought.
Wait. I was going to say, you ran budgets, Jim?
I ran budgets.
So it's once the nerdy finance guys.
But before you go do your own introduction, because I know we're going to screw it up somehow, this is actually an interesting experiment. I didn't realize that, you know, Melinda, you're the first guest that neither myself or Jim actually have met at a digital health event or bar. It was like through kind of a recommendation to have you on.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Usually the bar is where to find me. So
it is a situation. I don't know if you saw, we're not allowed to say those bad, negative words.
Oh yeah, I don't have my sign.
Why don't you take us like quickly? So you have like pharma background, obviously startup. I was just talking to your boss, the CEO, a couple of weeks back from Mymee, and fascinating stuff you guys are doing there.
Let's hear about it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I am actually an engineer by training. I started in California. I have a master's in biochemical engineering. And I mention that because I too love the math trophies, all the fun finance type stuff. I actually started in doing research and actually in viticulture and enology. UC Davis is a leader in winemaking, and making wine or making biotech drugs, very similar. You just purify it a little bit more. So, you know, they always say in winemaking, the best way to make $1 million is to start with 2 million. And so biotech is the other way. You actually make money on it. So I knew the place to go. And I actually was in research, pipetting alone in a clean room. And, you know, just meeting me now, Eugene, you can probably tell I'm pretty outgoing for an engineer. And so that was torture, like listening to fabulous ABBA music, you know, doing the PCR machines, all that stuff. And I knew I needed to make my way into the business side. So I went back and got my MBA, marketing and finance, and switched over and actually entered the pharmaceutical industry through my MBA internship. And then my career was spent Wyeth, Pfizer, MedImmune, AstraZeneca, in about equal splits between R&D and commercial. I also took a little tour in manufacturing. They let me in because I was an engineer.
Manufacturing?
Yep.
Wait, stop. Manufacturing. Talk manufacturing. Well, how long? Was it a year, 2 years? What?
It was a year. So the president of manufacturing at Wyeth, he had been one of those cross-functional mentors they pair you with. Always take those. And he thought, hey, do you want to, I was working on the Protonics brand team, like multi-billion-dollar US brand, having a great time. And he said, come over, come work for me in manufacturing. And I wanted to be prepared to be a general manager when I grew up. And so I knew that the diverse background helped. And going into manufacturing, you know, you're learning about how tax drives every decision, right? And
it's tax, cost of goods.
Right. It's everything like that. And so it actually rounded me out in such a good way that I now start bringing up like what the operational efficiency is of making that a diamond shaped pill rather than a round pill, because it drives cost of goods. Is it going to differentiate our product when you're thinking about commercial? All of which came from manufacturing.
Let's talk like vibe, like, so in pharma, like the vibe in commercial, like the brand, like back in the day when you could spend a lot of money on DTC and, you know, sales reps, and then you go into manufacturing and
it's
like
totally
talk about the vibe.
Yeah, so it's funny because I actually have said it. So I was recently, a few years ago, I was at ADA with my team at AstraZeneca, and I was walking down the street with a whole bunch of R&D people, right? So you have like commercial type folks, you have R&D people, and you have manufacturing, all really different. And I was walking down and I bumped into the entire AstraZeneca diabetes commercial team. And they were awesome and they were cool and they're really great people, right? but I like looked around at the R&D people and I said, I think you people may be my people. Right?
Right.
It's like a little nerdy, like you're not quite cool enough. Like, I'm not good. Like I always say, I can't stay out to 4 a.m. and drink. You can do one or the other. So it's like, if we're going to drink, I'm going to have to go to bed by like midnight, 1 o'clock. Right?
That's how I felt when I came to Ireland. I remember coming to Ireland and walking in, I'm going like, Jesus, why does everyone look like my mother and my sister and my cousins? And they're like this is a whole land of kind of fair-skinned
Exactly.
people.
Exactly. So it's funny to see because in commercial also at the time, this was like early 2000s, we all dressed up in suits every day and like looked spiffy.
Yeah.
And manufacturing was not that way. And so they actually always assumed I was a consultant. Like for the first quite a few meetings, I'd come in and I had my little pearls on and, you know, you were like young with your MBA, you know, picture it in the pharma company. And they immediately were like, thought I was from McKinsey or BCG or something like that. And so actually,
there's kind of a distrust, right? Like it's a union kind of mentality.
Well, and then it was the Protonics manufacturing guy, the guy done supply chain, would be like, no, I know Melinda. I've been working with her for years on the brand team. Like she's good people. And everyone's like, really? She looks like a consultant.
Jim, I'm like in awe of your questions on manufacturing and financials, and I'm shocked. I'm literally in shock right now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They have other dimensions.
Yeah, I learned something new after such a thing.
Okay, so we didn't let you go. We didn't let you continue because I stopped you at the manufacturing.
Stop at any time. So career is about half R&D, half commercial, and a little manufacturing. And along the way, I kind of stumbled into digital marketing, digital health, commercial innovation, all those kinds of roles for about the past 10 years. So I joined MedImmune as the head of commercial innovation, and I've been on the Enbrel brand team for about 5 years. And it was right at the time that MedImmune was launching some products in that space. And so it was perfect timing to come in and kind of do innovative things. From there, it turned into digital health. I ended up, you know, AstraZeneca had this fantastic team that was working on digital health, digital therapeutics, across R&D, commercial, adherence, everything. And they actually needed someone with a commercial background because they were all R&D. And so speaking that language to say, well, how do we actually work with one of the brand teams to convince them to use the support tools and whatever. And so I joined that, loved it, and then continued on doing that. And so along the way, I left AstraZeneca a couple years ago, been consulting and advising. And then one of the companies I advised was Mymee, which is a digital therapeutics company in autoimmune disease. And I'd met the CEO at one of those bars at a conference at the digital therapeutics meeting.
I just found out I've met her too. I've met her too at JP Morgan. I was told by my co-founder that I went drinking with her. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
What did you say, Eugene?
I said, was she wearing pink socks?
Not at that. That was CNS, right? I think this was DTX. She still didn't have pink socks on, but it was an interesting thing because it stumbled along. And so I joined earlier this year as chief commercial officer, and I'm having a blast. It is so different than huge companies, massive teams, lots of resources, wonderful, right? Because you get, you know, it's first time being entrepreneurial, and Meta and I are kind of a balance of things we do because she has more the entrepreneurial and dreams big, and I sometimes work out some of the practicalities. So it's good.
Yeah, she's kind of a badass, isn't she?
She's awesome. Yeah. It's why many of us are at the company. She has. And I asked around, and a lot of people have really great reputation. And so give us the kind of what is the company does again. Yeah. So Mymee focuses on autoimmune disease and empowering people living with those diseases to reclaim their health. So it's a program that has 3 components: an app, digital and data analytics, and then health coaches, which I know Eugene is familiar with, so certified health coaches. Oh. And the backstory is that most autoimmune disease, so you guys know this, like anyone who's worked in pharma knows these are the biggest selling drugs right now, specialty care, they dominate the market, but they all focus on where the disease is attacking you, whereas we're looking at why, right? So it's not saying the skin versus the joints versus it. We're looking at identifying triggers, food and environmental triggers, to figure out why your body is having this autoimmune response and trying to reverse those symptoms. So again, it's, you know, the app where you record what you're eating, you know, all the exciting things, water, bowel movement, symptoms, things like that. And then data analytics in the background, figuring out what those triggers would be, and then coaches to help guide in the behavior change. So all about improving quality of life, and along the way, we've seen some fantastic.
So how does it feel to wear so many hats? Because I don't know actually how many people you guys have. I kind of in a similar path. I think most viewers know, left the big company and now joined Marina, and it's like, we're switching hats all day long, right?
So I've been doing it for a while where I wear lots of hats. I love it. And it's actually what I loved about being on a brand team, right? Is that you're the owner for manufacturing issues, for safety, for whatever. Like, I actually loved that about the pharma side and being on the brand team. So it's very similar in when you're small, you're also figuring out HR stuff. You're also like, I joke, we have a fantastic director of operations at Mymee. And I oftentimes, give her department names like, could you thank the entire talent acquisition department for help? So it's one person who's also, payroll, who's also, right, accounts receivable, right, accounts payable. Like, she does a lot of hats, right? And so, it's fun. You get to move. You're always thinking. And also the beauty of this is that your brain picks up lots of different things and fits it together. And being an engineer, I'm such the problem solver that I love piecing those little bits and trying to figure out where it goes. So it's actually been really great to wear different hats.
We have to talk, like, Eugene, we never talked about this before though. Let's talk cash. Like, about cash. Cash.
Finance, cash. I mean, dude, what the hell?
No. But the difference, I think one of the differences, like, fundamentally is, I remember leaving, is this idea that, you're finding a business model, you're figuring out your business, you're raising capital, and not many people can handle that uncertainty. That uncertainty, even like that the company might not have enough money to pay you in 12 months or 18 months, never mind. I think I've had some white knuckle rides. I've had some white knuckle rides that are a lot tighter than that. So what do you guys think about that? Are you close to that? I mean, you guys are probably more developed now at this stage. I mean, I'm not trying to get you to disclose your bank balance.
I probably can't disclose too much. I certainly, if you guys have any cash in your cushions that you'd like to give me, I will certainly take it. But it is very different. The one thing that, I said was, I've worked on brands where our spends are hundreds of millions of dollars, right, in marketing.
Right.
And so this is a very different game of like trying to figure out an advertising agency, right? Well, it's not Ogilvy, it's not Digitas, right? It's something small who works with startups. It's a totally different world because I can't spend $700,000 on a media buy, right? When you're
or a strategy, right? It's not about a strategy. It's about de-risking constantly and actually doing stuff.
Yeah, right. It's the last thing we need right now is a strategy. We need to get shit done.
right, exactly. That's exactly. So it's interesting in that sense. I even said kind of the presentations. I was at a family event and someone came up to me this is when I was my pharma days, and he asked me like where I get money from. And like, if you need money, you just go to like your, TALT meeting, whatever leadership meeting, and you're like, put together a proposal and I need $20 million. And you usually get it, right? It's usually a good business case. There's plenty of money to go around. That is not how it works in startup land, right?
It might take 6 months though.
Right.
I mean, it depends where you are in the budgeting cycle, right, Jim?
Yeah.
I didn't know, Mr. CFO.
Yeah, that's why if you hear a lot of people that kind of like me around the pharma industry, it's all because I ran their budgets for years. That's my reputation.
Well, and being good at forecasting. So one of the things I used to joke about, like when I was on big brands like Enbrel, is you could always spend extra money, right? So you'd be like at a bar. Again, I got a lot of work done at a bar like you guys do. And I hear that the other brands were going to be underspent. And I know about managing quarter spend and end of year spend. So I walk into our finance department and say, hey, I hear there's an extra $2 million on this brand. I can use it by pulling forward these tactics from next year. Can I have it? And people are like, what? And I would get it, right? Because it was like, well, they're not going to spend it. You can spend it. I was a great, you could like forecast within 0.3% in order to get your bonus. And commercial treat people to their bonus. So I'm like, I'm an excellent forecaster. I can tell you exactly how to spend. And so some of those types of things, it's just different.
Yeah.
So one other piece that I noticed, because even though we're very unprepared, it literally right before you jumped on, I took a look at your LinkedIn and I saw HealthMode.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're an advisor to it. I actually saw them pitch at one of the MedStartr events, and like I love the whole kind of discovering digital biomarkers. So as a researcher and also commercial, I'm curious a little bit about kind of what you're doing with them, or.
So yeah, I'm drinking water. I know it's still early in New Jersey too, but I'm in Philly, but I have a couple meetings after this. First off, like, Dan Karlin is excellent, right? Good people, good ideas, but coming up with, how you look at digital biomarkers, how you can use it in, for example, in oncology, right? There's some really cool, so I was leading oncology at AstraZeneca Digital Health before this. And so there's, performance status. Can you actually figure out which drugs to use based on some kind of video? Those types of things that are pretty amazing. It's funny because I love digital therapeutics, but also I'm so passionate about using digital health in R&D to speed up R&D, whether it's AI discovery or, other elements. And so part of what HealthMode is looking at, AI in clinical trials, what types of things you can be doing. And so it's really impressive. And I think speaking of cash, they might be wanting to get some more cash. So if people need that, but that type of thing is really interesting. So to me, I've been thrilled to be a advisor to them.
You mentioned digital therapeutics, and we had this HealthXL thing, and it's been on the tip of everybody's tongue, right? Especially with some of the FDA regulations that came out during COVID. I'm curious to kind of contrast your experience in AstraZeneca within the digital therapeutics team and working through that. And, I don't know if directly or indirectly Mymee if you guys consider yourself as a DTX or not, because I know there's quite a lot in that package, right? Which is a bit of a misnomer. So I'm curious, like your contrast on AstraZeneca and view of DTX.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting is from the pharmaceutical side in general, we're always looking to improve our products and our product sales, right? It's a very, very different way. We're trying to improve the quality of life of patients. Don't let me get that wrong. But it's a very different ballgame when you have a $10 billion product. So some of the challenges, like just using pharmaceutical companies in general, is when they're looking at DTX, if it's going to supplement their revenue stream by 200 million, that's like barely a new indication. It's like maybe a new formulation on a huge product. So it's actually hard. I worked in one of my jobs at one time with strategic planning and doing the portfolio analysis. That's the finance side of things. And trying to figure out what you prioritize. And in a pharma company, a DTX usually wouldn't make the cut because it's not big enough, right? Now,
and they haven't really. It hasn't really, it hasn't, right? Like if you look at the big kind of successful announcements with like Therapeutics and great guys, totally impressed by them, or, the Proteus and the, who else we have out there? Those.
Don't confuse. Actually, Proteus, somebody commented on LinkedIn, Proteus is a digital medicine, not a digital therapeutic, right? So come on, Jim.
God forbid.
Yeah. It's also bankrupt, so it's not quite a good.
15.
It's funny. I actually figured out that I'm in an entirely new category, and I just figured it out just the other morning. That like with it, I keep figuring out I'm in different categories. So with our product, we wrap it around, injectable medications. Our product conjoins with an injectable medication to do engagement, right? And but the and I was kind of dealing with, actually, we're going through an investment round, and I'm dealing with, explaining results and where we're at and kind of road mapping. I'm like, why don't people get this, what we're doing? Like, of course, pharma takes a long time to buy things. Of course, healthcare systems take a long time to buy things. It's just how they are. Yep. So I have no problem with it, that things take time. You know what I mean? Like in terms of, so you just want to make sure you're making progress, along that cycle. Right. But the tech investor, the generalist investor, they, really struggle with that, right? Like how come things are taking so long? And I kind of realized that this, that I'm kind of an area almost like pharma digital health tech. It's like almost like pharmaceutical digital health tech, which is even more nuanced than digital therapeutics or, kind of care systems, where the pharma people are just going to buy, if we're going to put our product into a patient's home, they're going to take their time and they're going to first yes or no go decision, then they're going to contract, then they're going to implement, then they're going to assess, and then they're going to start recruiting, what I mean? Like, patients. So it's like, they're just going to follow this process.
So Jim, I think you need a sexy term for the new category that you just came up with.
Right,
however,
right. What is it? Give it to me.
I can't think of one right now. That's why it's like,
come on, you're drinking.
There's sometimes you want a new category, but there's oftentimes when you want to be part of another category, right? Either for fundraising or for reimbursement, right, whatever, right? So, but I think what you're talking about, Jim, though, I mean, looking at a pharma company, and to Eugene's earlier question, it's also the amount of risk that they're taking, right? So I worked at Wyeth right after the Fen litigation, right? $21 billion worth of settlements, right? And I always joke, it's like the amount of risk and the impact that can happen, which is why pharma is slow, which is why, You know, it's a very different, that's why it doesn't operate at the speed of tech, right?
Right.
And so that's a difference that when
Which is kind of right. It's just kind of right. Like if you take like my product, it goes into a patient's home. It's not into a patient's body, but it's like, you know, like a medicine, but it's going into their home. So, you know, you kind of would want the people making that decision or deciding to endorse that to kind of go through that process.
Right.
You know what I mean? You could see it after a while, if it's in lot, you know, if it reaches a certain scale, they can accelerate that, but it kind of makes sense, right?
But you know, it's interesting, right? Because your customer, Jim, are pharma. And I think, you know, kind of bring back to Melinda's, the pricing. I mean, you know, we haven't really seen real prices set for DTX. And it's not large enough of a pricing. And, you know, are we going to see a blockbuster DTX? We talked about this on the HealthXL earlier. Like, is there a blockbuster DTX? Like, is somebody like Big Health with sleep issues, right, and sleepio, is that going to be priced right and juicy enough for a big pharma that's, you know, making 10 billion, right? On a
well, but like, look at, I mean, is it going to be comparative to like Xyrem at Jazz Pharmaceuticals, right? You know, I mean, it's $1 billion, like, can you actually get to that place, right? And I think part of it is trying to understand how we're going to be paid, right? Like quality of life measures and stuff. Because when you look at things, you know, Novartis just launched a new rare disease drug for like, you know, a couple $1 million, right? It cures, it's amazing, it's for children, you know, difference. But all of the, you know, quality adjusted life years, all the assessments are $1 million, nobody got to 2.4 million, right?
Right.
Whereas digital therapeutics can actually demonstrate cost savings, quality of life improvements that are multiples of what they charge, and they're still having a hard time charging it. And so it's a different place because everyone assumes because it's tech that it'll be cheap. But if you paid on outcomes, and I know, you know, some of the guys always talk about that, you know, if you put a cloth over it and you couldn't see what it is, if it's a pill, if it's digital medicine, if it's digital therapeutic, you know, you would just pay on how do the outcomes, how do the side effects. But
it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg, right? And I think you know, Mymee has done a fantastic job, right? I mean, you guys released an RCT, I think some outcomes on it. I didn't dive in, and you know, a little bit of a plug. I actually paid for it, $200 for the year. Brian Doolan's Exits and Outcomes, where I dove in. Like, it's fascinating to see that only like 20% of DTXs are actually doing RCTs, which is like insane to me.
But it's the question, do they need to do RCTs? Can you launch directly, right? And the investor community is split, right? And so some of them like Pear and Achille and stuff have gone hardcore down the route of FDA approval and regulatory, right? And we haven't yet seen them on lots of formularies and charging prices similar to, or comparable to pharmaceutical treatments, right? And so some of those are the types of questions that are left unanswered right now. And so like we're in a unique position because Mymee can actually go direct to consumers right now with our currently available product and also sell to payers and self-insured employers, right? So we have contracts with, you know, with those that are ones in the public domain, there's some others, right? But those types of things that you actually can go direct, especially because in our world, we improve outcomes and save money. So it's a win-win for everyone, right? So you just have different models, but then figuring out, you know, would you ever get to, you know, MS drugs, $100 and some thousand a year? Well, if we got similar outcomes to MS drugs, would it be appropriate that we could charge that?
Yeah.
It's unproven so far.
So I have to pause for a book recommendation here. So this is I'm reading this book. This is fantastic. Like next time you come to Dublin, Eugene, there's this fantastic kind of secondhand bookstore just in the Dublin city center, like one of those charming ones that just opened up again. And so you just totally eclectic, random one. But I picked up one. It was called The Island. And The Island was, it's written by a guy, Huxley, and I'll put it in the notes afterwards. But it basically was this island in kind of like a fake island called Pala in like India or Indonesia is the story. And it talks about, there was a medical facility set up on this island, but they preserved all the traditional kind of Buddhist, kind of Asian treatment. So they had this, so they created this incredible where like kind of, you know, kind of English, kind of UK science was being combined with like Asian treatment and therapies. And so during the course of this thing, they, you know, they're constantly treating the whole person. Yeah. Like, so, you know, it's just kind of, but it's a story about how this island's going to get corrupted but it's the beautiful native people, but they, you know, they're like scientists and the research, you know, fascinating.
So they're like, you know, they're taking health coaching to the next level, basically.
It's all health coaching. It's all health coaching. Yeah, it's all health coaching. It's like someone says,
Marina, The Island. Okay.
Yeah, like, and I was thinking of this, like someone, like say, like our friend Martin with HealthXL, right, just hurt his knee recently, and they're giving the treatment to his knee, and they're giving the injection to stop the inflammation or something of the injury. But at the same time, this person's talking to them in kind of psychotherapeutically and talking about how small the knee is relative to the strength of the man and the size of it, so that the knee will never lose in the battle against the human or something. So it's late at night, Eugenia. I'm going off.
Honestly, I thought you were gonna, you must have had already like a few drinks throughout the day. I thought you were gonna recommend my book, which is not even written fully yet. But
totally, and that's what I'm waiting for out of your book.
I'm going to interview you for it. It's the going title is Hard Pill to Swallow: An Entrepreneur's Journey Through the Belly of the Beast. So this is like the whole pharma industry and kind of, decision making and all of that. So that will be fun.
No, that sounds great.
But one, we're doing this a little bit later today. So I'm like watching at the timing and I'm confused. I'm like, whoa, we did a whole hour? No. So I think we have room for one more curious topic. At least I'm curious about it. So you just joined as a chief commercial officer, and we're in this world, which I think goes for all of us, but I'm curious how you handling, because obviously kind of opening doors, closing deals, right? And most of this. So like, what has your experience been like, especially in the startup?
You're talking about during the situation?
Yeah, the situation. She picked up quick. I like it.
Yeah. So some of it is certainly a lot more challenging, right? We build relationships usually face to face, right? There's all those, you can't go to bars, right? You're not doing some of those things, but a lot of it actually is crazy efficient, right? So you think about how much time you spend traveling, how much time. So I've been able to get off a call with a customer and a half an hour later, like in the South, and a half an hour later get on one with the Midwest. Yep. And you pick up and keep going. And it's like, that probably would have been a whole week of my travel, right? And there would have been some like storm that came through and stranded you in some like Dothan, Alabama or something, right? Like that's just how it would happen. Yep. And so it's actually been good in that sense. I have actually found, Jim and I met, through this, and it's like, you can't
just COVID.
Right. You just, I didn't say it, he said it. But we actually, you can form relationships. It just takes more. The thing that I would challenge is, I'm curious. Obviously most CCOs are probably extroverts and whatnot, and most people in sales, but for other people, if they're finding it challenging to form relationships, build those bridges, I can probably talk to a wall, so it's not a big deal, right? But just trying to figure out and like find communities and connections. But in most parts, actually, I have found it to be more efficient. And then on top of it, good for the family and all those kinds of things. So good for your health. Talk about holistic. It's like, when have you ever been able to get in this much like fitness and yoga and whatever? Because you don't have commutes. You're not on planes. You're not losing. And I give the example, I'm an advisor to MIT's health technology program. I'm the only person, or was the only person at the time, not based in Boston. So they scheduled the meetings at 8:30 on Monday mornings, right? So in order for me to have Sundays with my family at home, I had to get up at like 3 a.m. to catch the first flight. I was running across town to get there, right? And then I didn't get home until late. Now, roll out of bed, end up just dressed from the waist up. Like, I don't even have to do it, right? And I always call it the businesswoman mullet, right? Business on top, party on the bottom. And you just then go, and then like I'm on other meetings like that. It's like 8:30 to noon, and then like by noon I'm on other meetings related to Mymee again, and it's no skin off your back. You're not exhausted.
But it's
really efficient.
It seems like your energy levels, though. Is there an echo here?
It was.
Is it working? Okay.
Yep,
it seems like your energy levels aren't fading at all, though. You're just pounded away.
Yeah. I have a lot of energy, so it's one of those things that you can keep going on. But the one hard part, because I am an extrovert, Ed Cox and I were talking about this the other day, for people like us, like we do, like I miss seeing him, right? So he and I schedule a regular walk until we realized we were in our office too much. So we try to schedule a walk where like we make each other get outside and take the call while walking. But it's like, hey, dude, I miss having a drink with you, right? I miss seeing you in person. I miss meeting up at conferences.
That's why Jim and I did this, right?
That's right.
So cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
But I think, so that's the piece, because especially for extroverts, I posted a meme to my Facebook page, like a month or two into the pandemic. that said, you know, introverts, put down your books. We are not okay.
Right.
And I ended up
It's fascinating because I was talking to, you know, with Eugene starting this thing up. It was like, it's like, we're the ones suffering here. The introverts are fine. You know, like.
No, interestingly, I was just talking to somebody who identifies themselves as an introvert, and they stated that actually those once in a while conferences gave a shot of that energy for a while, right? So even that is actually draining. Again, every individual is different, right? And I would
they're
argue
like social. They're like social camels. Like a little bit of water.
Look, I was reading some article, and there's no social camels. Ooh, I like that. Dude, you're on fire today. You should.
It's like he has to have like a hashtag on each one. Hashtag social camels.
I'm just jotting down the funnies. The funnies.
Right. See, I'm known in this like little sub circle that I'm surprised we had for having one joke. I have one joke.
Actually, in the networking session for HealthXL, we were kind of missing you, Jim. You were moderating something else, and Ritesh was spinning for like 3 minutes. We started drinking, and we were saying we needed you for the joke, but.
I know.
Anyway, listen, I'm watching the time. This passed by super quick. I can't believe that we're already more than half hour into it. So it was really a pleasure. It was a great experiment as far as I'm concerned. I hope you enjoyed it too, Melinda.
This was fantastic. No, I hope I have the opportunity to come back again in the future.
Totally.
You know, we're deciding the future as we speak.
We're season 2, right?
We're in
this is season 2.
Yeah.
I saw it in season 2. I caught a couple episodes to kind of see what was going on. I'm like, how are they already in season 2?
We just decided.
I mean, we make up our rules and whatever, right?
We're like, let's do a second season. Yeah, let's do it. And then my son was like, you need a break between seasons. And we're like, oh, why do we need a break between seasons?
No, we're like, you know, we just release them constantly. So we're going to move on to season 3, and then who knows, maybe we'll take a vote. But anyway, really pleasure having you. For the viewers and listeners, hit the subscribe. We're growing every week, which is awesome. And
our goal is 1 million subscribers. We're at 200. We're at 200.
Dude, I wish we were at 200. We're at 117 on YouTube, so we're getting there.
We're definitely going to clear 120 this week. All right.